Thank you for being here for my tower project to talk about your personal experiences with climate change.
Thank you for having me today, for inviting me to have this conversation with you. It really means a lot. Currently, I'm in South Africa. I'm in the city of Cape Town. Nature for me is who I am. I'm not separate from nature. When you say nature, you're actually speaking about me and how I relate to my environment.
Would you be able to describe a landscape where you have this very close connection with nature? Is there in South Africa a place where you feel this connection?
There's a lot of nature that surrounds the city of Cape Town, plus the ocean as well. It's quite interesting that you asked me that question because last year, while I was doing my hiking, I started developing a more intimate relationship with my surroundings, especially when I would go hiking on the mountain. I would start having conversations at little pockets of rest where there'll be a mini waterfall. I'd do a mini prayer, a mini conversation with the water, just gratitude um, for the space of rest, for the nutrition that the spring water provides. And you'd find pockets of spaces which have a lot of nectar, which invites a lot of bees. I would pause there as well. I'm not afraid of bees. I am, but I would still pause there and just have a little bit of a conversation with nature there still. Those conversations that I would have would not feel like I said in the beginning, I am nature. So it's kind of like me speaking to myself. I would find whatever message that I would convey, whatever topic that I would be speaking about, I would find it quickly coming back to me in an instant, as if it's a instant two-way communication like we're having now. There's a communication that goes on with nature that we are yet to understand as humans. Science is trying to understand it itself, but it's trying to understand it with its own language.
You told me about going to the mountains, the Table Mountain and the botanical gardens. What changes you have noticed in South Africa?
Our African penguins are endangered now, and part of it is a little bit because of the heat, yes. However, there's the effect of overfishing at the same time. We are consuming the same we are consuming the same food that the penguins consume. We are consuming the anchovies, we are consuming the sardines, and at an alarming rate because, again, there's that technology that processes this food, which accelerates production. Penguins and the Cape Garnets, our bird species, don't have the technology we have for 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 fishing. It's us humans that are causing a decay of our own space and our own natural resources, our own species. There's droughts that happen. There's extreme heat that happen. Livestock doesn't have enough sufficient grass to eat from because of the droughts. The farming as well. There's the crops are dying. They're growing at a very slow rate. So there's quite a lot of things that change with time.
You talked about how nature is a form of communication and how that is breaking down. Can you talk about that a little more?
The way we could tell seasons was a part of that communication. You would know when which types of birds were in the area. You would know which season it is, and there's always that first bird that lands in the area. If you're lucky, it lands in your house. you know, and then you'd know, okay, time, it's time now. It's time for summer, it's time for spring. That's in essence that communication that we did have with nature. We'd know each bird has a specific meaning. Each plant has a specific meaning, which plants would use for healing as well, which trees would use to tell the exact time for a season. Peach trees, apricot trees, grape trees, um, and different types of vegetables. You know? And those trees would bloom all at the same time, they blossom all at the same time. Everybody would know at that particular time that this is the time, this is the season. There was these little, I don't know what they're called. There's these little flying insects that come out of the soil, of the ground, and then and when they come out of the ground, they used to come out when I was young, and then when I was a kid, they used to come out in like a swarm, as like a swarm of insects fly, and then those would be the birds that would fly on low altitudes just to feast on those insects. That event is no longer there. Do you know? We would know it's 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. Insects would come out, the birds would fly and would chase the insects and would chase the birds. Those little bits of, of, of events would be a way that we would understand nature, what nature communicates to us. I'm sure our grandparents would know, our elders would know what the meaning of all those events meant. The indigenous knowledge from fish farmers in the coast would know when the tides would be high without watching any weather forecast, when to go to sea and when not to go to sea, based on particular movements of whichever particular species it was. That for me is communication. But we are slowly losing that and depending on technology, and depending on science as well. That form of communication was really something else, but we are slowly losing it, and now we need to adapt to a new form of communication and understanding, because the seasons has changed as well. The weather patterns have changed. We're experiencing more droughts and more flooding as well.
How does that affect people?
It affects people just very badly, because people are not prepared for it right now. When my grandfather would build something, he would know which material to use to filter the water coming from the rainfall. We would know how to landscape our yard or the garden as well, based according to how much rainfall is expected. There was a regular pattern of rainfall, consistent. Right now, it's not regular. When it rains, it pours, and then what do you call this? The water levels rise up so high that the crops then end up dying. Houses end up being flooded at the same time, which is things we never experienced before. If you look at rural communities, they don't have the science. Some rural communities don't have the technology. Mm-hmm. They still depend on the indigenous knowledge that's been passed down from generation to generation. And now that knowledge has been passed down from generation to generation, and the current climate state, the state of climate is right now, is not coinciding with what they know.
If you can talk about the emotional and physical well-being and people's health, how climate change
Yeah,
affects health?
that's very simple. Um, I think uh, I don't remember that's where I got the information from, but um, the amount of oxygen that is in the planet currently is a few percent less than it used to be. Um, that on its own affects our own brain activity. Um, it affects our own physical health. Those are subtle things that we won't see up until it actually becomes a big thing, up until we'd have to go and buy oxygen tanks, like the way we're buying water when there's no water, you know? I think that's when people will be like, hey, we're in trouble. But right now, nobody is paying attention. Not a lot of people are paying attention to that. Mainly because I guess the information doesn't reach as far as it should. Due to climate change, the lack of nutritious food that we're having, we're having to go for alternatives. There's this meal of Africa, Kasotho ke papa, and in Shona in Zimbabwe, it's a sadza. So it's kind of like it's made from corn, processed corn, and then it's fine. It's like floury like, and you boil water, and then put a little bit of that, and then stir it in to make it to become some sort of like a doughy type. It's like porridge, basically. Yes, soft porridge. So we used to do that. It wasn't genetically modified. Literally take corn, process it, cook it, and have it for food. But now we are having more. We are having that pap, which is genetically modified now, and that has a lot of health implications. Our body structures are no longer what they used to be. From what I've noticed, our lifespan has decreased because the oxygen levels of our current oxygen levels have reduced due to the amount of heat that's circulating on the planet, the global warming effects, the heating up of the ocean, which is providing us with less and less oxygen. And we're having less trees, which is also reducing the amount of oxygen that we receive. We're having a lot more carbon in the atmosphere as well, and fossil fuels as well. That affects our health, our well-being. It affects our ability to process things quicker mentally, our ability to make sound decisions. Some of these pharmaceutical medicines are generic, they're not area specific. Yes, we might have a flu vaccine, but we might have painkillers, we might have cough mixtures, but a cough mixture that's designed in a lab in somewhere in Northern Europe, coming to a different continent on its own, in a different locale, with different temperatures and different gravitational pulls and different atmospheric pressure, it doesn't hit the same. There's an Artemis plant that we were using during COVID, which is a very, very, very ancient plant that we've been using when we have colds, flu, coughs, etc. One would never have to be ill for longer than a certain period of time when we're having those plant-based materials, because we knew that this material would take effect from this point and the results would be seen this time. That's no longer there. This is a big topic, question which would need a separate interview on its own.
Right. There is not enough research how this is affecting people mentally.
Nature provided us with everything that we need. Nature provided us with food that we need, the nutrition that we need, places of shelter, places of refuge. But I feel like disconnecting from that is just moving on to a whole new something else, which I don't know what to call it. But yeah, it's something completely different from what we actually should be and how we should be living as humans.
Do you have hope? Do you have thoughts about solutions?
Yeah, that's the solution, basically, going back to what nature provided us. Because we're forgetting what we're forgetting the materials that we need that were given by nature for a specific region to build a specific house or property. Because nature didn't provide Southern Africa and Brazil and the West the same materials to build properties and houses and architecture. We all have different provisions from nature. So we need to go back to that, finding out what do we have in our own communities, what do we have in our own regions, what materials do we have, how can we best use them to fit our current environmental needs, our current lifestyle needs. We need to consider those options because at the moment we're not doing enough to consider those options, especially with foods as well. We need to consider sources of nutrition that we've lost as time went along. We've had salt, which was from the ground, from the soil. It's no longer. It's now quite rare. Some people are selling incense, which kimpepo. So there's an incense which is called mpepo. I call it sage, which we use to communicate with ancestors to get rid of evil spirits, etc. You see, then again, here it comes up again. Nature provided us with everything that we need, even for spiritual purposes. It gave us what we need. So that herb is no longer in certain places where it used to grow in abundance. And we're not paying attention to that and regrowing those herbs that need to be at a specific place, at a specific time, for a specific reason. We need that to happen. We need to come back and do that. And there's microorganisms, there's insects that we used to grow up with. We know that they should be there or they were there. We can farm those insects. With science now, the microbiology, we can have solutions that would bring back what needs to be where it needs to be, in essence. But that's is what you nantre guy gore se sa feeling se a hlola se sa feeling se a hlola. So that means is what doesn't come to an end is a how can I say it in English? Oh goodness. Sure, there's a quote in English which says something about what doesn't come to an end and so forth. But kasi so to gore se sa feeling se a hlola. So which means eventually this will come to an end. All the disasters that we're in, all the climatic challenges, environmental challenges, social challenges that we're experiencing, it will come to an end. It will have to stop at the end. at some point.
Mm.
So that's what I would say, that's what I would say with that. So in African language is, I think, there's always an end to something and there's always a beginning as well. So we might not have a solution now, today, but it shall come to pass. That's what I believe.
That's very beautiful. In Soto, do you want to share anything else to your people around the world who may have immigrated to different countries or like in North America where I'm based?
I would say come back home. There's different reasons why people migrate. Academic reasons, better life, or marriage, a new life partner, work. We still have a duty to our own environment, our own places of birth.
Mhm.
That's a given. And there is nothing we can contribute that will be of advantage to where we were not born. It won't solve any problems. You know, the problems is where we were born. That's where God placed us. That's where we can solve our own issues. That's all I'm gonna say. Yes, we can solve them now, even while we are living in different areas, which is the beauty of technology, I guess, to some extent. You know, we can still work towards those solutions. So let's come together, let's team up, Arbeng Batu, because motho ke motho ka batho. Ska re tseba kaofela rona. So o ska sia batho ba eno, o ska lebala mo o tswang teng, o kgutle, la o sa kgutle, o lokise mo o lokisang teng ka tsebo ya hao. O no ka se bane le yona tsebo eo. Ha no sa tswalwa mona lapeng la hao. It can be from Zambia, it can be from Zimbabwe, anywhere where you are. You need to contribute to your place of birth. Give something. And it always comes back wherever you are. That's how life works. That's how the universe works.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Can you tell me how to say thank you in Zoto?
Um, ke a leboha. Le
Galalebo.
nna ke a leboha.
Hmm.
Nna lebitso la ka ke Khotso, which is my name. And Khotso means bringer of peace.